We've all been there, that slightly awkward feeling when you're in a meeting or a group setting or even a social setting and somebody is dominating the conversation or they are derailing it, rambling, but everyone else there has a lot of politeness and they want to seem engaged and encourage others to contribute, and they're not really sure how to nudge the conversation or the meeting back on track. And it can be quite an uncomfortable feeling when you know that others are experiencing the same thing, but nobody's really doing anything about it or feels comfortable to do this. Welcome to the Refreshing Leadership Podcast with me, Maya Goodker, where I help you refresh your thinking in both life and work. I have just had a listener question that I wanted to do an episode on because this is a common topic that comes up. I have shared previous episodes about this, but this one is slightly more complicated, shall we say. So here's the listener question. Hi Maya, I keep experiencing meetings where somebody unintentionally dominates the conversation and you can almost sense the rest of the group sitting back and disengaging, but nobody actually interrupts. I find it surprisingly hard to step in, even though I know it would help the meeting. How can you interrupt in a way that serves the meeting without damaging relationships, especially when hierarchy is involved? So I think this is a great question because there are two key elements here. There is the art of interruption piece and the skill involved in being able to facilitate successfully and get the most out of people's time and really make the most of everybody being there. But then there's separately a piece around how do you do this within a hierarchy where you may not have all of the authority and power, and there may be consequences to interrupting those who are more senior, or they may not take well to it. And I coach across a lot of cultures, so I'm really sensitive to the fact that there are some cultures where it is not appropriate to interrupt if there is a hierarchy, and that this can be damaging to your career. So this is a useful time to introduce what I always have near me, which is my locus of control. This is the stuff right now that is within your control in any given issue. This is the overall issue. There's a lot of stuff that's not in your control. And over time in coaching, we can increase what is within your control. But at any given time, there are only certain elements which are. And therefore, let's start with some things within your control. So the first one is positioning and setting up the meeting for success. Now, in coaching, we do this quite formally. It's called contracting. And so I will directly say things to my clients like, if I think we're going off track, I request permission in advance to interrupt you and to ask you if this is necessary in order to move you forward towards your goals. And if at that point you say, no, it's really important, Maya, I need to say this, then of course I'm not going to stop you. I'm here to help you move forward. But you may at that point agree, and that interruption might feel clunky in the moment, but I request permission to do that so that we can get the most out of your time here. And therefore, there is a way of doing this. I do this in group coaching. I do this now in team meetings. There is a way of doing this that is appropriate for the environment you're in. So it may be something more like conscious that we have a busy agenda today, a lot of important items to get through. And so I just encourage everybody to be mindful of time. If I think we have gone off track and it's not in service of the team goals, for example, then I just request permission to gently nudge us back on track. And if you're able to do that, then people are not going to take it personally if and when you do need to interrupt them, because they will have been well prepared for this to happen and they know the meaning and the reason why you're doing it. You're not doing it to cut them off and be rude. You're doing it for everybody's best interests. And I don't think I've ever asked permission for that in a group or team setting when somebody said, no, don't do that, right? Because everybody is short of time. Everybody wants to get the most out of the meeting. And so it is going to be very rare for somebody to say, no, don't do that in service of the meeting. So that's the first thing. If that is within your control. So if you have, if you're facilitating the meeting or you can speak up at the start of the meeting with this, if that part is within your control, that is a great way of doing it. The next part is when you're inviting discussion, because a huge part of meetings is being able to have healthy discussion. Now, if again, you have a degree of control over this part, then what I would encourage is that you set people up to be time aware when they are putting their contributions on the table. So whether you want to say something like, conscious, I want to hear everybody's voice and give everybody an opportunity to have a say, as well as get to the other points in the agenda. So I will just let you know when you have spoken for a couple of minutes, and ideally everybody has a couple of minutes. Now, I do rough versions of this all the time, and it's never precise. It can be a bit messy. People initially feel, oh, you're giving me a time limit, and they can feel a little bit backs up by that. But once they see how effective it is in making sure that everybody is succinct and everybody is mindful and aware of each other's time, they usually really get on board with that. And it's not strict, right? If somebody's got something really important to say and they're saying it well, then you're not going to cut them off at 120 seconds. You're going to let them finish what they need to say. But it gives so much more of a structure. So that's the second thing. As you'll see, neither of those are specifically requiring you to directly interrupt someone. They're just paving the way for smoother conversations, more time-effective conversations, and interruption if you need. You've positioned interruption as just part of serving the team's needs because you have put a time limit on. You have asked that you interrupt if we've gone off track. So you've done all the background positioning, and that is part of the art of interruption. Now, the third bit is you're not always going to be able to do that perfectly, right? And sometimes you're still going to need to interrupt. Or it could be that you are part of a very archaic meeting that has always been done in a certain way, and you don't have the opportunity to do that positioning up front. So there is still an opportunity for you to notice that a meeting is drifting off track and do something about it. And here are a few ways of doing this. So if you can do a little bit of gesturing to the individual, like just a bit of gentle hand raising, bit of eye nod, so that they realize that they might have been going on for a little bit. If you can do it with gesturing, great. Sometimes I will do this in coaching. I will just do a little gentle hand raise so that the client knows that I want to come in at this point. That's the first bit. However, I appreciate we're not necessarily dealing with the most self-aware people. So when you're doing that gesturing, they may not pick up on it. So the next bit is, what might you actually say at this point? Here's one example. It may not feel right for you. Every organization has its culture, so you can tweak it. What I would say at this point is, sorry to interrupt. I'm aware that this is a rich conversation and something that we could delve into in a lot of depth, and it might need some separate time to get into some of that offline. I am conscious, though, that we have quite a few other agenda items that we still need to get through, or that we need to hear from some other individuals. So would it be all right now if we park this and turn to some of these other items, and then if we've got time at the end, we can revert to this, or we can take it offline and have some further conversations, because it's clearly something that there's a lot to discuss on. So that's a way of hopefully doing it in a way that doesn't feel offensive to people and is encouraging of the discussion that has taken place. That might feel like something that, even if there is that hierarchy in place, is doable. I certainly hope that that would be the case. However, I have worked with enough organizations to know it's not always going to be possible. And so let's now just think about other ways of increasing what is within your control over time. So one way is finding other ways to land your feedback, right? So this could be giving feedback to the individual through some sort of a 360 process, or if you have any other informal opportunities and you feel safe to give that feedback, you could do that in a one-to-one. If that really didn't feel like it was possible, then you might need to share that feedback to somebody more senior. So that's the stuff that might be within your control. If it is, give it a go. And it might not be possible in all settings, but there might be some settings where you can start getting practiced at doing this. And over time, and as you progress, you're going to be more adept at doing this and be seen as somebody who is a great facilitator, which, by the way, is often synonymous with being seen as somebody who is C-suite material or has that presence, all those things that my clients often really want. Being able to direct and manage meetings well is going to be a key element of that. You could offer, for example, to chair the meeting. You could offer to set the agenda for the meeting and introduce the meeting. So see what else you can do to start to have a more active role, particularly at the start of the meetings. And once you've tried all of those things, if none of that is possible, that's no longer within your control. And that's where in coaching, we sit back and relax, because we have done what's in our corner. And now we need to stop trying to take accountability for something that is not our problem. There is a management problem there. If the individual doesn't have the self-awareness, isn't open to feedback, then there is a broader management issue there in that managerial style that will need to be addressed, and that goes a little bit beyond just a communication issue inside meetings. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope that's given you a few different ways to go, and more broadly has given people a way of thinking about these type of scenarios. If this is of help, please share it with somebody else that you think could benefit, or you could share this with your team. You could share this with people inside your team and say, look, I came across this amazing way of making our team meetings more efficient. I know we can get derailed sometimes. Here are some tips and tricks for managing each other, holding each other to account. Why don't we try some of these over the next few weeks? So you could do it that way as well. When I'm with my coaching clients, I always say to them, use me as a passport to try new things. Say, my coach said this, or my coach suggested that. And I guess I'm suggesting something slightly similar here. Share this idea, and then brainstorm, say it could be a way of us brainstorming how to make our meetings more fun, and take it from there. So I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye-bye.